Creating automation scripts in DataMiner Cube is quick and easy. However, when you want to add advanced C# logic to your scripts, it's not always that straightforward. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to the Visual Studio extension called DataMiner Integration Studio and show you how you can use it to create more advanced automation scripts. DIS, or in full, DataMiner Integration Studio, is a Visual Studio extension that allows you to easily create protocols and automation scripts in Visual Studio. Up until this point, we have always created our automation scripts in DataMiner Cube, but when you want to add advanced C# logic, you're better off doing this in Visual Studio. In this training video, I'm going to show you how you can create automation scripts with DIS. And before I start, let me first show you where you can find that plugin. So here I have Visual Studio open, but before I can actually start using DIS, let me first show you where to find it. I go to DataMiner Dojo and then Expert Hubs, DataMiner, and then Integration Studio. You'll notice this is a page all about DIS, and in the download section here, I can find the latest release of this extension. Once I have this installed, it's available in Visual Studio to be used. So let me open that up. To see if you have installed it correctly, you should now have a DIS menu item here. So let me walk through some of the DIS features that are useful for automation script development. Let's first go through the menu itself. Let me start at the bottom because that's quite important. Together with DIS, there is a help available. So if I click this, you'll notice that there is a help similar to the DataMiner help itself, where you will find all info about all DIS features. Note that a lot of these are not directly related to automation script development because DIS is also mainly used to create protocols. However, some of the details here will be useful for automation script development as well. So let me go back to Visual Studio. In the menu item, you'll notice there is a check for updates. Basically, once you have DIS installed, you don't need to always download it from Dojo again. If there is an update, DIS will notify you, and you can also manually check here. Now let's highlight some of the settings that are important for automation script development. And the first one is the DMA setting. Here you can add any links to DataMiner systems on your network. So in my case, I have a couple of them configured, and the automation DMA is the one I use for this training. So if I want to edit this one, I just configure the IP and the login that I want to use to connect to that agent. Here I can also test the connection to see if my connection is actually working fine or if I need to tweak some settings, for example. In this case, my connection succeeded, so I will be able to connect to this DataMiner. I'll show you later in this video why this is important. The next setting that is useful is the DLL setting. Here I can link to any folders where extra DLLs are located. For example, if I want to use or import an Excel file, for example, in a script, then I can add a reference or a link here to a folder where the DLLs are located that I will need for that. You'll also notice on my local machine I have also a DataMiner installed, and I'm linking to the files and the protocol scripts folders on that one. Note that if you don't have a local DataMiner, DIS automatically ships with the most important DLLs that you will need. For example, for automation script development, we need some DLLs also to have IntelliSense. If you have specific DataMiner version that you want to use, then you could link the folders here to be used to that specific DLLs and not the ones directly shipped with DIS. But note that you don't need to do this if you don't have any special requirements. And then these are actually the most important things that I want to highlight for for automation script development. Also notice in the info you can see the actual version you have. If there might be any issues you are encountering, it's always important or useful to specify what version you are running. This way we can easily check if we can reproduce this, for example. Now that we went through the settings, let's go to the final thing I wanted to highlight before looking into actually creating or editing automation scripts with DIS, and that's the tool windows. You'll notice that there are actually quite some of them. Today we are only going to look at the tree view because the others are mainly used for protocol development, although we might use some in the future as well for automation scripts. If I click the DIS tree view, you'll notice an extra window appears. For now, nothing is in here, but once I open up an automation script, the tree will actually be populated and it will allow me to easily navigate in my automation script. This is also the same tree used for protocol development, where the actual XML is a lot bigger. So now the first useful feature I want to highlight, and that is actually linked to the DataMiner that I connect with. So here you can see I'm actually already connected to my training automation DataMiner. So what I can do now is actually import an automation script from my DataMiner. So if I click this, a pop-up will open and it will show the same folder structure that I have in DataMiner Cube. So if I quickly connect to DataMiner Cube, I'm in the automation module here. You can see the same folders are visible. And if I open one up and do the same in DIS, you can see the same scripts are available. If I now want to import one or multiple scripts, I simply select one and click import. And now I have my file directly imported from my DataMiner, and I can save this and start editing my script. Now let me close this one and actually show you how you can create a script from scratch using Visual Studio. I'm going to File, New, and then select File again, because in the end an automation script is an XML file. Now that I have DIS installed, there is an additional option here called DataMiner, and here you can see there is an automation script template available. I can also create a function or a protocol, but now we're only focusing on automation, so I'll select this one and click Open. And you can see the basic XML is already added. So let me first save this, and I'll save this on my documents, for example. And I want to create a script again for our singular life integration. So I'll call this singular life new stream and save this XML. You'll also notice that there is some highlights here. That's because of an extra extension that I'm using. But the reason that this is shown is because we are using an XML schema here. And this is also included in DIS, which will add some validation checks for us. For example, in this case, I cannot have an empty name in my automation script. So I will also call this singular life new stream. And I'll leave the description empty for now. I can specify the folder I already want this script to be added to. So in my case, I will probably want to add it to the singular life folder, as this is the one that contains all our scripts linking to this integration. So I'll add singular life here. Now I can add some protocols. These are the dummies that you can link. I can add memory and I can add parameters. These are the same as if I would start creating a script here. So here I also have my dummies, my parameters, memory files, and then the actions. DIS will mainly be used for C# actions in your script. So DIS automatically already adds an action for you of type C#. And you'll notice a snippet is used for that, but I will come back to this later. So what is now the big advantage as well of using DIS and connecting to your DataMiner? You'll notice that I have a publish button here, and this is actually used to publish my script directly to DataMiner. So if I click this, my script should now become available here in DataMiner Cube immediately, and you can see my script is here. Now I don't need to manually update my script all the time or upload my script. For example, if I want to add a dummy for my singular life protocol or element, I can simply add one here. And I can either use a snippet or I can just type it manually. If I start typing protocol and hit tab, DataMiner Integration Studio will automatically add a snippet for me. Now I can give it a description, the protocol name, protocol version, which is production, and I'll leave the default element empty. If I now hit enter, I'm closing this snippet, and I can save this again. You'll notice, however, that I now have a validation warning, again, because I'm using the schema here. And it mentioned that there's a duplicate key here. It's important to know that any ID that you use in your script needs to be unique throughout the entire XML. So if I use ID 1 here, then I cannot use it here anymore. So I'll just simply use 2, and that error should be gone now. If I now hit publish again, my script will immediately update on DataMiner. So here, I have my script open. Of course, I'll need to reopen the automation module because it doesn't refresh all the time. So if I open it up again and I select my script, you can see that now my dummy has been added. I also see I actually have a typo here. So let's also quickly fix that. And I will also add an additional dummy, because what I want to do with this script is actually create a new flow in Singular Live and then start streaming to it. So in order to stream, we have always used the VLC element for that. So let's add that snippet again, and I'll give it in ID 3. Description VLC, protocol name is VLC RTMP. The production version as well, and I'll also leave the default element empty. So now let's publish this again. And now, of course, I don't need to refresh because I changed the name, so it actually added a new script. So I'll remove this previous one that has that wrong name. And actually, if I now go back to Visual Studio, the latest and most important feature for automation script development using DIS is, of course, being able to easily edit your C#. So what you can see is with my exe, so with a script action of type C#, that there is an icon available here. If I scroll down, you can see it's not that easy again to start editing my C# because this is directly inline in the XML. But if I click this icon, DIS will open an additional tab here where I can actually edit my C# and I have full IntelliSense. So if I now want to get my script dummy, for example, I can easily start doing this by typing engine dot. And I have full IntelliSense available. So if I do get script param, I can get, for example, my Singular Live parameter or dummy. Of course, it's not a param, it's a dummy. So it should be get dummy. And it's as easy as that now in DIS. Now, I'll not go deeper into this today. The last thing I wanted to highlight is the DIS tree, that if I now select my XML and go to the DIS tree, you can see the XML is loaded as a tree, and I can easily navigate in here and start or going to specific items. So now you know how to use DIS to create automation scripts. And as you can see, it's fairly easy to start working on them and updating them on your DataMiner agent.